I'm from South Haven, Mississippi, and when you live in South Haven, you cheer or you play football. And South Haven cheerleaders don't just cheer on the sidelines, they compete. Practice 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. And when I was a sophomore, I was on top of a pyramid and I fell. Back then, 3-man high pyramids were legal. Now they aren't legal any longer. But I fell, it knocked the breath out of me, and the next day I was in a lot of pain. And my parents took me to an orthopedic doctor and surgeon, and he came back and I had a fracture in my spine, and he came back and said, she's got scoliosis, she needs surgery. And, you know, my parents ultimately left it up to me, and I just knew, you know, I would be toast. My cheerleading career would be done by that point, and so I opted not to have the surgery. So life went on, and I even cheered in college, and the days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months, and then into years. And in 2013, I knew it was time that I needed surgery. I was in a lot of pain, and you know, through the years, many people would ask me, you know, what's wrong with your back? Why are you so hunched over? What happened? And so I would explain, you know, my story over and over. And but in 2013, I started searching for a surgeon. I knew it was time because I was just in a lot of pain, and it was really getting quite difficult for me to breathe. And so the search was on, and the third surgeon that I went to see, I knew he was the one. He was at St. Francis Hospital, great bedside manner, and he had a daughter that cheered, so I knew he understood where I was coming from. So I had the first spinal fusion, April of 2013, and I was fused to T10 to L3. And it was quite possibly the roughest thing I've ever been through in my life. But I pushed through, I worked hard, I did PT, and I survived it. I was working out, I was running, and essentially I was pain-free for a good 1.5 to 2 years. 2015 rolled around, and I woke up and I knew something wasn't right. I just knew. And the pain was in the left side of my pelvis and my left leg. And for a long time, I really thought it was in my head. You know, I would ask myself, okay, are you really in pain? And it got to be where it was unbearable. So I started seeing every doctor imaginable to get a pain source. So it just got to the point where it was determined it was my spine after all. And they felt like the rods were just compressing everything. And so at this point, I did not really have a definite pain source. They were just hoping for the best. Surgery was scheduled. And during my pre-op testing, a month before surgery, it was shown on an x-ray that my rods were broken. And I was so grateful for that pain source because, in my opinion, the worst thing ever is to be in horrible pain, but to not know why is absolutely just horrible. So July of 2016, I had the spine surgery. I woke up pain-free, completely pain-free, except for the incision, and I was pain-free for 2 whole weeks. So I fell asleep during the recovery period at home, watching a movie, and I woke up the next day. My right leg was as big as a house. My mom was literally coming in the door. At that moment, I was waking up. And by the time they got me to the hospital, I had a blood clot the entire length of my leg and one in each lung. And I know most people do not survive one, and I had 5 total. And it was the scariest thing ever. They put me on blood thinner, sent me home. I never got better. I went and saw a vascular surgeon. He readmitted me to the hospital immediately. I ended up having 2 thrombectomies. And the anesthesia they put me on made me violently ill. I threw up for 8 hours. So violently, in fact, I pulled out my IV. Blood was everywhere. It literally looked like a murder scene in my hospital room. And I remember it was very, very painful for my husband to watch me go through that. It was the most painful thing. I had severe chest pains. I could hardly breathe. My oxygen was dropping. I really felt like I was at the end of my days. But somehow, I survived all that. A week later, I got another one. And when they scanned me at the hospital and the doctor told me, "You've got another one," I was devastated because I knew how sick I was and what I went through, and I just couldn't deal with that again. And so they changed up some of the anesthesia, and it helped. I actually drifted off to sleep during the procedure, and so that helped. And they put a filter in to catch, in case I were to have any more. So November of that year, I got my filter out, and it was supposed to be a 30-minute to hour procedure, and I was there all day because I had another blood clot. But after some thorough examination, it was just part of an old one. My doctor didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And during this time, the pain came back with a vengeance. And now it was in both legs, both sides of my pelvis, and in my spine. And the pain was so severe that I'm nauseated every day, all day. And when you're that nauseated, all you can do is get in the fetal position and fight through it. I had a total of 5 surgeries or surgical procedures in 2016, a few of which were unnecessary. There were multiple mistakes made by multiple doctors, and I was the victim. I grew up, my father was Church of Christ, my mother Methodist, and I eventually became Catholic. So God was always a big part of my life, and all through college, I rarely missed a Saturday or a Sunday Mass. But then when all of this happened, and my health was taken from me in a split second, I thought back to choices I've made, and I have most definitely not been the perfect person. I've made mistakes, and I felt like I was being punished. And so I became very resentful. I quit praying. I quit looking at my Bible. In fact, I quit going to church completely. I thought, God, if you are not going to heal me and you're not going to bring me home, then I'm not going to glorify you. And it was just a really, really, really rough time. So this brought me to May. During this time, I was seeing every doctor I could. Anybody could help me. I would have gladly, gone to see him. So I knew it was time for me to really get serious. So I got into Vanderbilt, and I really felt like they were the ones. They were going to fix me and heal me. They're world renowned. And I was there for a couple weeks. And before the doctor came in, I became so emotional. I knew that my story did not end there. Somehow I just knew. And they said due to the trauma of the surgery, I had a condition called arachnoiditis, and there's no cure. And so, once again, I became secluded. I was devastated, just devastated. I pretty much stayed in the bed on the weekends, and it was just really, really a rough thing to go through. And I couldn't explain it to my children, even though they knew Mommy just wasn't right. It was just a really hard time. And then something happened, and it completely changed me. I was at work talking to a coworker about her upcoming MRI. And during this time, I had sent my records off somewhere, just, for one final last chance to get help. And while I was talking to her, I was thinking, I never heard from those people to see if they got my records. At that very moment, my phone rang. I took a beeline down to my office, and that phone call was the miracle that I have been waiting on. So tomorrow, I will be on a plane to New York, and I'll be seeing the top spine surgeon in the country, as he's agreed to take my case. This has totally changed me from a wife, a mother, an employee, a friend, a person. It has changed every aspect of my life. I've been given opportunities and experiences that I know were not of my hand. And I know that call from New York, I know whose hand it was. And I was so happy. But I felt so bad. I had so much guilt because I was not a nice person. I treated God horribly. And this is what He had in store. A week later, I got a call from the National Scoliosis Foundation. And we're about to see some major changes with scoliosis in the state of Mississippi. The Bible says God will not leave us. He will not forsaken us. He has us in the palm of His hand. And not only will He bring us out of this trial and tribulation, but He's going to bring us out better than we were before. And I now know that. God gives us a foundation. And through our life stories, through our journeys, brick by brick by brick, He is unveiling those pieces of our story. And I know every tear I've cried, every bout of nausea, every pain, every disappointment from every doctor were all part of this process to get me to where I'm going. Through my story, I truly want to help people. By trade, I'm a licensed and board certified teacher. We help people. We inspire others. And that's what I truly want to do here. If there's just one person that I can help and keep them from going down the same path that I went down, I will say that I have been so blessed with my husband, my children, my parents, family, and friends. They have been so supportive when they didn't have to be. And I wouldn't have made it through without that. And it's really just made a difference. And this has changed not only my life, but many lives in the process. So I'm Nichole Thomas. This is my story, and however this plays out, I know that it'll be the way God intends, and His sovereign grace will be enough.